everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Nerds Be Heard. I'm here joined by my co-hosts, as always, Matt. This week we got a lot to unpack. It was the premiere of the Black Widow movie, which has finally come out, which we, have a lot of thoughts on. We want to catch up on the last two episodes of Loki, and then, just a lot of stuff's been going on. So, Matt, what have you been most excited about?
Well, this is Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze here behind me. For those watching and not listening, today is the 30th anniversary of the single greatest action movie ever made, Point Break. 30 years ago, 1991, on this day, Catherine Bigelow released this cult classic, surf classic, amazing film that actually set a trend really and redefined what it meant to be an action movie, and it really inspired what action movies are today. I think a lot of people drew inspiration from it. It was ahead of its time. It's a timeless movie, and I felt like I had to bring it up because it is actually, I always say, oh, it's the greatest this, it's the greatest that, but this is number one on my list of top movies ever made. So it's a really special one for me, and I can't believe I feel old that it turned 30 today. But I felt like I absolutely had to mention that, just given the cultural impact it has had.
It's funny, you said something during this that I totally forgot that Catherine Bigelow directed this movie.
Yeah, it was her first
wife
big
of James Cameron.
and he's the guy that got her the gig. So basically, the history behind the movie is they had this script, they spec'd it, and they were passing it around, trying to have it made, and it was kind of like in production limbo for a couple of years. Got inspired by this book called Tapping the Source, which is a really good book for people that like to read, especially nonfiction, suspenseful thrillers. Different entirely, but that book inspired this whole surf culture with some sort of crime mystery amidst that type of surf bro culture, if you will. And anyways, going through this kind of production limbo, and James Cameron came to the bat and he said, hey, I guess he was in the running, and he's like, look, I can't bring these characters to life in the same way that my girlfriend can. Catherine Bigelow puts her up for it. It was right around when he did T2, and then like 4 months later breaks up with Catherine Bigelow and moves in with the girl that played Sarah Connor, with Linda Hamilton. Did I say that right?
Yep, you did.
Anyway, but he basically, that was Catherine Bigelow's first motion picture, and no one expected, she was ahead of her time for a female to direct an action movie with that much testosterone. And what's crazy is it's the most testosterone filled, action packed movie maybe ever made. It's bromantic, it's adrenaline, it's not at all it was ahead of its time. And then the fact, Catherine Bigelow, just that put her on the map. She's made a lot of great movies since. Obviously, Hurt Locker won an Oscar for that. And then
Zero Dark 30 she did after that.
Yep. So honestly, ahead of its time. It made Keanu Reeves a household name. Before that, he had only done really Bill and Ted's series. He didn't do really much anything else. And that and Speed basically made him an action star. And then it was the first role for Patrick Swayze where he was, in a long time. I mean, he had done Outsiders and a couple other movies, but that turned him back from like heartthrob to this anti-hero, villain type character that wasn't just the love interest heartthrob type thing. So really cool movie. All the stunts were really done. They were all practical. Patrick Swayze jumped out of a plane over 100 times while filming, which was an insurance nightmare for the movie. And some of the most breathtaking action sequences ever made. Some of the most iconic, quotable scenes. Gary Busey If I were to say anything about the movie, is Gary Busey, Utah, get me two. Um, the iconic Keanu Reeves shooting into the sky. No, they've replicated that in every movie known to man. And yeah, to this day, I don't think they've made a movie that had the skydiving sequences quite like that. So it's a timeless classic for me. It's what inspired me to be an adrenaline junkie, which I am. Inspired me to jump out of planes, which I've done, bungee jump, drive cars fast, ride motorcycles fast, do pretty much anything.
Everything fast.
Yeah. And we did the 20th anniversary of Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious was actually a remake in of sorts of Point Break. The director and the writer has admitted that he drew on that bromance between Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, and basically wrote the same story, just swapped out surfboards with cars. So
it's totally true.
Point Break is very much responsible for the multi-billion-dollar franchise that is the Fast and the Furious.
Yeah,
Only
too
it's
bad.
a way better version of it.
Yeah, too bad Point Break didn't get a humongous franchise. I feel like Keanu should bring that back.
They tried. They made the remake in 2015. It was a solid movie if you didn't call it Point Break. It just wasn't Point Break. And they tried to turn it into this heist style Fast and Furious type, potentially a franchise, and they missed the mark there. But I thoroughly enjoyed that movie as a standalone, as its own. But yeah, not quite what they were able to do with Vin Diesel and The Rock throwing each other through walls. So
no, they didn't have family, but
oh, have you what do you think of those memes going around
I
that
mean,
died real fast?
I honestly think they're some of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
I mean, I'm still sending them regularly.
I still think they're great. I seek them out, and I normally wouldn't for something like that. I mean, I know we talked because I still haven't seen the new movie, and I wasn't sure of like why is this becoming so popular right now. But I mean, I obviously know the family threads throughout the series. I just think it's just so funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
I think it's the new one contributed in sorts just because there's no like, so if there was any like thread of logic left, which there really wasn't, but like if let's say Fate of the Furious had like just an ounce of logic remaining, F9 threw it completely out of the window. And I told you already,
yep.
worst movie ever made, I think. F9, actually, very likely, and I mean it this time, very likely I wait for DVD or streaming for F10. It's just I have very little interest in that franchise anymore
It's
after F9. But
it's
that's what inspired it, I think.
it's just so funny too because I know you personally have mentioned this, but one of my favorite YouTubers, John Campia, who he's a big movie critic and he has a very successful YouTube show. He kind of basically said, it's ridiculous when the Avengers is more believable than a Fast and the Furious movie. And
Yeah.
you said that first, so it's just kind of funny that like people are saying that, and I just don't know. Not to get on the fast topic, but like how we got there. It's just insane.
Thor
Oh,
Ragnarok is more believable. and I'll say it. Everyone knows I say it almost every freaking episode. Thor Ragnarok sucks. Thor Ragnarok might as well have won an Oscar as compared to F9. It blows it out. It's a way better movie than F9. So
wow, that does say a lot. Speaking though of Oscars, because we were saying how Catherine Bigelow, Oscar first ever female to win Academy Award for director. I would love to see her direct a Marvel movie.
yeah.
It's just funny because we'll transition after this into Black Widow. I think Black Widow would have been like a perfect movie for her to have made.
Yeah. Or we could finally get Keanu Reeves in the MCU, and she can direct him in whatever role he
Which would be
takes over.
amazing. He's definitely he's coming. He's got to.
He's got to. He really does. I mean, he's a busy man right now. They culminated the production phase of the Matrix 4. They're now in post-production, which I couldn't be more excited about. And from what I'm hearing from rumors and the set and all this stuff, it's just kind of completely game-changing, which was how the originals.
I hope it is. I don't know. I'm a little
skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pumped for the movie, but
I mean, I'm gonna with the Wachowski people are geniuses in my opinion. They obviously really dropped the ball with Jupiter Ascending. Is that what it's called?
Yep. Even though that has like a weird cult classic vibe now, which is interesting. But I agree with you. They dropped the ball with that.
They dropped the ball, but me being the guy that hates CGI, thought that movie, that one scene with Channing Tatum flying through the city on his like Blade Runner style, whatever the heck that was, that was some of the most beautiful cinematography and CGI I've ever seen done on film. And that was phenomenal in more ways than one. The story just was terrible, and the acting was bad, and it was really upsetting. But going back to it, I have faith in the handling of the property of the Matrix. I personally loved the trilogy. I think the original blows the other two out of the water, but I was a big fan of Reloaded. Thought Revolutions was a little bit underwhelming, and honestly, it was just an extension of Reloaded, so fair. But even the spin-off like video game and even some of the comics that they've done as a spin-off, I think it's just a really cool property and really cool IP. And I don't know, I think they'll come up with something. It's not even both Wachowskis anymore, it's just Lana, I believe.
Oh, I didn't realize that they're both not doing it.
Yeah, no, it's just one. And so but I still have faith that they'll do it right. And Keanu has been actually on a run of picking really good.
Yeah, I don't think he would have done it if he didn't think it was a good script.
Yeah, though he's a nerd, and he like if it would be, Keanu Reeves is up there as one of my favorite human beings to ever walk this earth. I mean, he's like a close, like, my top 5 would be probably Harrison Ford, Paul Walker, Keanu Reeves, maybe Tom Cruise, and Abraham Lincoln or something. But this and let me confirm which Abe Lincoln I'm talking about. Of course, the Vampire Slayer one.
Okay.
No, but no, honestly, actually that probably is the list, which is hilarious, but big Abe Lincoln fan. But if we could have Keanu Reeves on this podcast, I'd pass out. And the chances of that happening are higher than one would believe. So I actually have a buddy who actually knows one of the guys that works for Arch Motorcycle, which is Keanu Reeves' motorcycle company that he started. They custom fabricate motorcycles for exclusive clientele, pretty expensive bikes. They have like a warehouse, and Keanu has kind of had an input into every single bike, rides them all, tests them. He actually has the bike from Matrix Reloaded, that scene where they're cool, racing down the highway. He has that there. He has a big collection of motorcycles. He's an adrenaline junkie, and admits that Point Break and filming that is kind of what made him that way.
Okay.
He actually surfs, he rides motorcycle, all that. So anyway, has access to Arch Motorcycle, and I might actually do a tour of it and hopefully bump into our boy, which would make me faint. And then we'll bring him on the podcast. I mean, it's still like a 1 in a million shot, but it's better than 1 in a trillion.
I agree. It'd be amazing. I would have to ask him about my favorite Keanu Reeves role, Duke Kaboom.
Of course that is. When you actually think about Keanu Reeves and why I do want him in the MCU or in Star Wars, which we talked about, he was rumored to potentially be in like Old Republic type role, and potentially entering that Star Wars realm. Keanu Reeves can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. I mean, when you think about the level of iconic roles he's had, we were celebrating 30 years of Point Break. I mean, Johnny Utah is one of the best freaking characters in cinematic history. He plays Neo, which is just Neo could take on the whole MCU and they couldn't take him down. He played John Wick, which John Wick is one of the greatest action franchises, which I finally got you to watch. Have you watched
Yeah.
all of them?
I haven't seen. I never finished the last one, which I need to. The third.
That's one of the better ones.
Yeah,
I mean,
I do love John Wick though.
that
and
first 8 minutes of John Wick 3 is.
I mean, and I'm even
insane.
pumped that they're making a spin-off show.
Spin-off show called The Continental on Stars. Or is it Showtime?
It's on Stars.
Yeah. And they haven't started filming that yet, but I'm going to audition for sure. And then John Wick 4 is currently in production as we speak. And they're casting as it's underway, which they've announced a few additions to the cast, a few recurring people coming back. But I mean, there's that. There's Speed. There's
weirdly, I mean, the Duke of Boom was a joke, but I do love that movie, obviously. But I would say my favorite role, weirdly, of his ever is Shane Falco.
Oh God, yeah, The Replacements.
Yeah, that is a great movie.
Phenomenal flick. All his sports movies are great. What's the baseball movie? Hard Knocks.
Oh no, where he becomes a coach of like the underprivileged kids. Hardball.
Hardball.
That is a great movie too. Yeah, that's a great
oh
movie.
my God, I love it when you call me Big Pop. Throw your hands in the.
And Michael B. Jordan's in that movie, which is crazy.
Yeah, young MBJ. Yeah. But yeah, he just makes phenomenal movies. I personally loved him as Constantine. He's been in the comic book world before. And honestly, if they were to bring Constantine back, I'd like him to. Did you hear that rumor?
I did hear that rumor. I heard he may be in something. Quite frankly, though, I don't want him to be tied up in that. I want him to come to Marvel.
Yeah, but actually, I don't even know if it's like just like I think it's a very real possibility that he's coming back as Constantine. I read that from I forget what source it was.
No, that's been in legit trades as rumors. I mean, we've talked a bunch about what we think is going to happen in Doctor Strange. Kind of been talking about the Flash movie, Flashpoint, but haven't talked about it as much as Doctor Strange. They're going to do exactly the same. Both of those movies are going to be like, that's DC's version of the multiverse movie, where Doctor Strange is the Marvel version. I think a lot of people are going to show up in that movie for just cameos, and that could be where Keanu Reeves comes in.
Speaking of the Flashpoint, I sent you that video. I'd seen it before, but it's awesome every time, where Michael Keaton is giving a graduation speech. And he's like, hey, just go out there, live your dreams well. And then he's like, before I go, I have to leave you with 2 words. And these 2 words will be the most important words you've ever heard. And those 2 words are, I'm Batman. It's just freaking, and everyone just erupts in applause.
It's amazing.
I love that. If that were my graduation commencement speech. So listeners, Charlie and I went to the same university. That's how we know each other. That's how we became friends. Who gave your speech at your graduation?
It's funny. I was wishing you were giving me more time to remember. I don't remember, so that means it was forgettable.
Do you know who did mine?
I don't remember. It's funny. I think mine was an author. I don't remember her name, but I don't remember who did yours.
You're gonna be like, no way. Bill Nye the Science Guy did my graduation commencement speech.
It's pretty legit.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
it's like
mine's very forgettable.
for me, it was like, oh my God, the first guy to ever get me into education.
I actually now I remember that happening because I was there and I was just like, this isn't fair. Why did they get someone cool? And
Yeah.
mine was just not good.
I couldn't believe, and I was thinking that, like, I was sitting there like, all right, this is the culmination of my, education period in my life. I ended up going and doing more school, but at that time, I'm like, this is the last time I'm doing school. And the guy, literally the guy that first taught, like, first got me into getting educated was Bill Nye. And then he came in and did this speech, which was hilarious. And he just talked about some weird stuff that made no sense to me. And he was just talking about like how we're all like atoms, and then we're gonna thrive. And I was just like, what is this guy saying? But anyway, back to Flashpoint. They have released set photos, so we do have 100% confirmation that uh, at least Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne is in the movie. He's looking like a badass. No confirmation yet of Ben Affleck, and he's out gallivanting with J
But I
Lo.
was just about to say, and he was just seen with her children. Like they're
Man.
full. Like what a crazy world we live in. That could just be a movie. I cannot believe he is there back together.
What a legend. Goes from Ana de Armas, and like everyone's like, how are you pulling that off, to getting dumped, and everyone's like, oh man, dude's gonna hit ground, like hit rock bottom again. Got like filmed or photographed grabbing a case of beer, relapsing. Jennifer Garner showing up at his house, and then he's with J Lo 2 weeks later. It's like, what? How?
I agree. He's
Legend.
an interesting dude.
He's he's Batman.
He is
Um,
my favorite Batman.
so I really hope he's in Flashpoint. They released the Supergirl
Speaking of Batman,
costume.
though, that I don't want to cut you off. There's a ton of rumors coming out though that he is gonna get a show with his Batman. And like I know some people think that's fake. I think with the new leadership over there at that company, we're getting stuff like that because they're finally gonna give the fans what they want. They're not just gonna do what they think is best.
They'd have to pay him a lot of money though. That it'd be interesting if they
I
do
think
that
he'll
over at
do it
HBO
though.
Max. Yeah. Well, it would be great if they did this series and then had spin-off series, so that they do it with like him and Joe Manganiello for Deathstroke.
Yes, that would be
And
great.
so for those of you that aren't the biggest comic book fans, Deathstroke, aka Slade Wilson, is DC's kind of it's funny because Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, was kind of a like a
Parody.
jab in many ways, or satire
Yeah.
of that character. But Slade Wilson is a one of the few characters in the DC realm that can survive a battle with Batman and hold his own. A badass character, a ninja of sorts, part of the League of Shadows in certain I guess renditions of the character. And he was cast. Joe Manganiello was going to play him. He did a brief cameo in Justice League, the extended Snyder cut, and then he also had an after the credit scene after Batman versus Superman, or was it after the original Justice League? I can't remember.
Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, it was Batman versus Superman. He was getting framed up for this solo Batman outing as the main villain. That obviously never came to play. I think it would be phenomenal if they did this show where he was the main villain, but also did like almost like a long Halloween style where Batman's taking on multiple foes. I think that would be really, really cool. That's kind of what they're probably doing with the R. Patch version of Batman, but I think a series would do it even more justice, especially if they do it exactly like Arkham, the video game. But if they did that, I think that's what we all want. At the end of the day, Batman. I feel like you and I have talked about this. I feel like DC needs to give up on this extended universe where they're all connected, and I think they
Yeah.
should just capitalize on their, unique IP. Do a Batverse, do your own Man of Steel kind of extension. I think give Henry Cavill another chance, extend his storyline. Cool. Do what you're going to do with the other Superman property that they're working on. That's fine. But you can, this is a world that's getting constant content. Who cares if there's 5 Supermen out at the same
Yeah,
time?
at this
Just
point, it
do
doesn't
it.
matter, especially what they're doing. But
So
I think Henry Cavill is unfortunately done, which is upsetting, but he'll just come to Marvel.
Speaking of Marvel, let's talk about Black Widow.
Yeah.
So luckily for fans that were not too excited to go back to theaters, Black Widow was available on Disney Plus Premium, and so I watched it opening night. As I guess we'll both go into our opinions of the movie. As a guy that likes the basics, likes practical effects, likes the lack of over the top CGI, with the exception of that final scene, I thought it was great. In terms of, there was a lot of Jason Bourne style, John Wick style, James Bond, Mission Impossible style action sequences. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed Florence Pugh. I thought that's a great new character. Yelena entering the MCU. I hope she plays a really big role, which we'll get into our thoughts on that. Love the addition of her character. Found her to be very funny with her dry humor. And overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, though. I can agree with there's a consensus there seems to be online that, hey, not really, kind of an unnecessary movie at this point in the cycle of the MCU and the phases, but still one I enjoyed nonetheless. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the movie, but I definitely am part of the camp where I really wish this movie came out not just way even before the delays because of the pandemic, but this should have came out like 4 years ago, in my opinion. It felt really low stakes compared to what we have now, in my opinion, I've come accustomed to with Marvel movies. It was a pretty grounded in reality type movie, which I did like how you're saying, and very action packed. I love the characters. I just, at the end of the day, Natasha's dead. So it doesn't really matter what happens.
Wait, what?
Spoilers, but if you haven't seen Endgame, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. But and I just felt like I didn't care as much about the characters. And I mean, I really, in a weird way, I hope this movie gets a sequel with everyone coming back together. Maybe, I mean, Florence Pugh's character is definitely going to be the new Black Widow of the MCU, in my opinion. And they locked her up at such a good time because she is probably one of the hottest actresses in Hollywood right now. So, and she was great in the role. I really loved her. Scarlett Johansson just crushes that role, but at this point she just is Black Widow. So I got what I expected from her. And I feel like I've seen her have some better scenes in other movies. But I'm happy she finally got to be the star because she deserved it. But yeah, like, I enjoyed the movie. It's a forgettable one for me, but I do want to watch it again.
That's fair. I mean, I had, I chat with a few groups of people about these movies, and a lot of people share your sentiment there. It's just like, hey, I enjoyed it, but didn't need it. Probably don't need to rewatch it. Doesn't really play that big a role, but I think they did a great job look, they messed up, right? They should have had a standalone for ScarJo 10 years ago, and they didn't, and they dropped the ball, and they're kind of trying to do that justice by, backdating and giving her an arc. It's like kind of like, it is milking the franchise a bit, right? So, for example,
Yep.
I'm going to it's going to sound random, but it's just fresh in mind. But like Sons of Anarchy, for example, had a book that got released after the movie, like after the show was done, and it's like, oh, this book takes place between season 2 and season 3, and it
Yeah, I
was like
read it.
yeah, you read it,
Yeah.
Bratva?
Yeah.
I did too. Did you like it?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, at least that came out though, like a time where it felt appropriate. Like I was still really, I mean, that's one of my favorite shows of all time as well. But I was still pretty obsessed with it at the time. So like, it's a good comparison because that was just to make money. They even made comic books, and I bought them. I love that world. Like I really wish that was still a show. I mean, I like Mayans. It's just not as the same.
Yeah, I gave
I
I
haven't
wanted,
even watched the new season.
yeah, I wanted to like Mayans, and I watched it up until they let go of Kurt Sutter, and I feel like they've gone very, very extreme, um, to like push him out. And I think he could have still stayed involved. So I was really frustrated because I'm like a huge Sutter fan. And I feel like, so you just said it's one of your favorite shows, Sons of Anarchy. Like anyone that knows me, I'm like weirdly obsessed with the show to the point where like, I mean, I have the Sons of Anarchy vest. I freaking, um, I've watched every episode like at least 5 or 6 times, probably more. I got so engrossed in that world, in that life, in that just story. It made me a, one of the biggest. Well, I was already a fan of Charlie Hunnam from Green Street Hooligans, but made me an even bigger fan of Charlie Hunnam. I think he's a movie star and needs to be in more. Um,
Yes.
I just that whole world is just absolutely incredible, and it is something that you could make. They made comics off of it. There's all sorts of IP. There's so much more they can do with it. They did the Mayans. I think they need to do the first 9. But to me, yeah, it's the second best show of all time. It used to be the best show of all time on my radar, but Peaky Blinders took first place after I watched that show beginning to end. But yeah, but why did we get into Sons of Anarchy?
We were talking about how you felt that Black Widow was kind of just like a
Oh, and I
cash
did.
grab.
I
And then we
but
talked about
that's
the
what that
spin-off
book
book.
was. That's what
Yeah.
that book was. But before we leave the Sons of Anarchy, Charlie Hunnam needs to be a superhero. I personally, although I'd like to see him in the MCU, I personally think he needs to be Green Arrow,
Yeah.
and that's my favorite fan casting ever. But that just get that guy a franchise, man. Get
I
him a
think the
franchise.
funny thing about it, I think he's got the offers. It's him. He's not I wouldn't call him a strange dude, but like I don't think he likes the success that came with Sons of Anarchy.
Right.
And he wants to be low key, and he knows the moment he is in a big franchise movie like that, that all goes out the door.
It's so weird how that happens. Like the most talented actors that end up in these roles that become global phenomena, right? And actually, if we're gonna, we mentioned Sons of Anarchy, and then I mentioned Peaky Blinders. It's the same thing with Cillian Murphy. Um, Cillian Murphy was almost because he's in all these big movies, but he's always like kind of a side role and like kind
Yeah.
of still was able to slide under the radar, if you will. And he's done interviews where he's like, Peaky Blinders, he's like, oh, it's a blessing that it just got this really big success really fast and word of mouth. And next thing you know, it's like there are rabid fans of Peaky Blinders. If you are on Instagram and just randomly scroll, it's like all these pages constantly use the likeness of Thomas Shelby as the main character in Peaky Blinders, that they put quotes and they recut scenes, and it's just like it's all over the place. It's a massive show. Same thing, him, Charlie Hunnam, they're like anti, they don't want to be famous. Like they got into acting for the craft and to do cool projects, and then
Yeah.
all this fame, and they're like, you could see they're visibly uncomfortable with it, and it
Yes,
always cracks
especially
me up.
Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah, yeah. Charlie Hunnam like doesn't want, he stays low key. He's like, I don't want to be in the spotlight. It's really kind of.
I
And
feel like they need Guy Ritchie to do like a Marvel movie, and then he'll get him to be in it. And I mean, yeah, Cillian Murphy's obviously was a Christopher Nolan's boy, so that's why he's been in big movies, but it's kind of just because Christopher Nolan's huge.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting how that all
Yeah,
kind
it
of
is
plays.
really weird because but I guess that's why it takes a certain type of person to be an actor. I feel like.
I'm gonna say something that's gonna maybe because you haven't watched Peaky Blinders all the way through yet.
No, I haven't.
Um, by the last season of Peaky Blinders, I had a new favorite, and you're gonna be like, no way. I had a new favorite for Bond,
Interesting.
and it was Cillian Murphy. And when you say that to people that haven't watched Peaky Blinders all the way through, they're like, "Are you insane? That's not James Bond. That's my James Bond
I
right
could
there."
see that though. I actually don't think that's crazy. I really like him. I like almost every movie he's ever been in, and without even finishing Peaky Blinders. He's a very underrated actor. I mean, maybe you can't even call him underrated anymore, but
But by the end, I say this stuff. I'm a very dramatic person, but by the end of Peaky Blinders, I think he's the greatest actor breathing right now,
wow.
capabilities wise. I think I do think he's underrated. I think that guy needs to take over some movie and get an Oscar because I mean, what he was able to do with that character, and
I mean, when you first see him in that role, I knew it was him, but I was kind of like, wait, is that him? He transforms into like that's a role unlike anything he's ever played.
he's such an awkward, nervous guy in real life, and then he plays this dude with so much swagger that puts Tony Soprano to shame in terms of being a freaking gangster. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, how do you pull that off? And he's just, so much confidence, swagger, and that show. I swear, I'm never gonna let you live it down until you finish it, and you got to put it with
I know.
subtitles, otherwise you
You
won't
can
like it.
you have to keep pushing me. I mean, not to make excuses. That's just such a hard show to watch when you have a 2-year old.
Yeah,
I need to
I'm with you.
really I need to pay attention, and
Yeah,
I'm assuming he shouldn't be probably in the room when I'm watching that show either.
yeah, probably not. Every frame is important in that show, so it's important you pay very close attention. But let's bring it back around. So that was an IP for Sons of Anarchy to tie to how Black Widow was a cash grab for everyone involved. But they did bring it all together and tie it in by doing the after credit scene, which basically sets up how some of these kind of old characters and new characters might connect in phase 4. Is it what
Yep,
phase
phase
four?
4.
Phase 4 of the franchise. So you get um, um, what's her name again?
Florence Pugh.
No, the Seinfeld.
Valentina.
Valentina comes back in the post credits, and it's back to modern times basically, and your Florence Pugh's character, the new Black Widow that we're speculating, is at the gravestone of um, Black Widow, and I was actually, so she's at Natasha's gravestone, and it was like setting. You knew something big was about to happen. It was
Yeah.
very eerie. I thought it was gonna be like she walks up or something, and it was like somehow survived, or like I was waiting for her to like show up, and I was like, no way. But then it's Valentina shows up and it's like, hey, how would you like to catch the guy responsible for Natasha's death? And shows a picture of our boy, our dude, savior of the world, savior of the Avengers, Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner, and that sets up
That was my
this
favorite
crisis.
part of the movie.
Yes.
I thought that was one of the better end credit scenes in a while, and I didn't realize this going into it, but she is in the Disney Plus show, so that is leading into the Disney Plus show, which is
Oh,
crazy that this now shows how connected everything really is. For anyone who out there who still doesn't believe it, you need to watch the Disney Plus shows if you want to stay caught up with the theatrical films, because now they finally crossed over where they set up a Disney Plus show.
not the funnest way to die. Sorry. Sorry. She's sorry. I'm great. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I'm just quoting. Quoting the movie. Not the funnest way to die. I thought her humor was hilarious.
Dude,
Although
I had read that scene where David Harbour, who plays her dad, the Red Guardian, kind of like, is it that time of month for you? And then she goes off on this like really dark tangent of,
yeah.
how her ovaries were pulled out because of the like goes on, and she like ad-libbed that. She like demanded that be in the script because or in the movie, because she was just like, hey, if you're gonna make fun of women for having periods, I'm gonna throw shit on you for
Damn.
that, which I thought was just like one
Baller.
interesting, but that was like a dark, that was, yeah, like that was a dark, she had a really interesting sense of humor.
Yeah. Well, I have a crush on her, so
She's dates Zach Braff.
really?
Yeah, they like
That makes a lot of sense.
hardcore, like they live with each other. I think it's a very interesting couple. Good for him.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm sure he helped her with some of those.
It's funny. I not to go off on a tangent about him. I am like a huge Zach Braff fan. I love Scrubs. He was like, I loved Garden State. Like to me, he was like amazing.
One of the best independent films ever made, and the soundtrack
Is amazing. And he to me, he's like
second to
a
none.
comedic genius. I must say though, I was really disappointed. It's like when they say, you don't want to meet your heroes. I happened to be sitting next to him at an Ed Sheeran concert. We were like on the floor, and he was behind me, and like he was, there with some random girl, definitely like trying to act like he was hot shit. She wasn't a celebrity or anything, and I was like, oh my god, Zach Braff, can I like get a picture? And he was such a dick. He like didn't want to take a picture, and I do understand, celebrities just want to be normal people, but at the end of the day, you get paid millions of dollars as part,
Snap a
in my
picture.
opinion, it's part of the job. And then, other people I think started to realize who he was, and he was just really pissed. Like, oh my God, this dude just ruined my night because he like called out who I am. And I've had a sour taste in my mouth ever
Yeah, screw
since,
him.
because like, really, how hard was
And
it for you to take a picture with me? You'd be nobody without people like me.
yeah, that, and it's always the ones that are like not that famous that are just being complete jerks about it. Like I met Brian Greenberg.
Okay.
He was in One Tree Hill. He was the main character in How to Make It in America. He was in the movie Friends with Benefits. He's in a lot. You see him everywhere. But I was a huge fan of How to Make It in America. It's one of the most underrated shows in my opinion. And also a big fan of One Tree Hill. And so I saw him out at the club in LA. I was with our mutual friend Nick, and I go up to him like, "Hey, bro, love How to Make It in America. What an amazing show! You do such a good job." And by the way, like, I know I'm a guy, so it's weird, but big fan of One Tree Hill. Like, big. I grew up with sisters, watched that every episode. You inspired me, and this and that, right? And he was like, "Oh, cool, thanks, man." He shook my hand, so that was cool. And I was like, "Hey, can I get a picture?" He's like, "No." All right. Like, you sure? Like, he's like, "Yeah, no." Okay. Well, see you later. Like,
Yeah,
no.
like it's so weird.
I'm like, all right, like, you just shook my hand. Like, what's like,
What's wrong
you
with
know
the
who else
picture?
was like that? Alan Ruck,
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yep. No,
He
I could
looked at me
see
like I
that.
had 10 heads. I'm like,
I feel like
hey.
Greenberg should have taken a picture with you. I mean, I know you're a huge fan, but that guy could use,
Right.
He should show that people have fans, that he
Yeah,
has fans.
you're not even that big, you
Yeah,
know.
no one. I mean, no one cares about you.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
which
yeah.
no, this is good conversation. Celebrity sightings.
Well, I have so many, so it's weird. Like I was reminiscing today. So I'm a big fan of show Animal Kingdom, and it aired its first episode of its 5th season today. And you being a Sons of Anarchy fan, if you're not watching Animal Kingdom, you need to watch Animal Kingdom.
I know. I'm.
It is to combine Point Break with so 30-year anniversary of Point Break. There's no other property that's ever been made that's close to what Point Break was able to bring to the screen in terms of capturing that Southern California surfer culture. Animal Kingdom is Point Break in the 21st century. It's the same concept. It's a group of robbers that they're just funding their endless summer, and they want to surf and they want to ride dirt bikes and they want to jump out of planes, and every episode they're doing something wild, which obviously that's going to be a huge show for me. But it finally took itself seriously enough in the last season, and then this season they must have got a huge budget increase because it just
Is it the
next level.
final season?
They have this one and they're one more after this that they're in the
Okay.
process of filming. And they just up the ante, and it's just such a phenomenal show. And I was thinking about when it first came out and no one knew about it. It wasn't as big. It's pretty big now and it's got a big following, but it wasn't that big in the beginning. And it was filming where I was living. I was living in San Diego, so it was about like 25 minutes from me up in Oceanside, about 30 minutes probably. And I went, and I was like, I'm going to go to Oceanside because I heard they're filming. I went on a Saturday. I wasn't really thinking they were going to be filming, but I just knew that they were filming in that time period in Oceanside. So I just drove up there. And next thing you know, like I get to the main strip and there's just like all these trailers. And I'm like, that's obviously for the show. Unless they're filming something else, that's got to be for the show. So I like ran up then I talked to the security guy. I'm like, is this the Animal Kingdom? And he's like, yeah, step away kind of thing. And I'm like, all right. And as I'm stepping away, Emmy Rossum comes driving out, and she's not on that show, but apparently she was directing an episode in season 1. And I recognize her right off the bat because it's freaking Fiona from Shameless and Phantom of the Opera. My like hard eyes are like, oh my god, and she was really sweet. She was like, hey, how's it going? Like, and had a little conversation, asked about my day, and then next thing you know, Ben Robson, who was in Vikings and then was one of the main characters in that, was walking by, and I just screamed like a fangirl, like, oh my god, Ben Robson, and he comes over and he shakes my hand. He takes 1,000 pictures. Did that one come out good enough? Asked me about myself, like, and I'm like, that's how you should act. I get it. He wasn't crazy famous yet.
Still.
But like that sighting, and the same thing, another super famous guy I met like last month, Steve Aoki, right? Just walking past him, and he stops and has a conversation with me, takes a picture. Like, same thing with Bella Thorne. Same day, Bella Thorne, who was super sweet actually, which goes against her persona. I mean, but then you have these interactions with some of these famous people that are just absolute tools.
Yes.
Is that the worst experience you've had with this, Zach Braff?
That, and I consider athletes celebrities. Roger Clemens is a huge D-bag.
Really?
Yeah, I was pretty young. I saw him coming. He was staying at the same hotel as I was. We were in Baltimore for the weekend, and they were at that point. He was on the Red Sox and they were playing the Orioles, and I'm a huge baseball fan. I saw him, went up to him, and I was really young, and he was kind of like, oh yeah, just let me get the rest of my bags and I'll sign this ball for you. he had his security guard get him, bring him into his car, and left. And he had no ever interest in ever talking to me or signing the baseball. And
Wow.
the Zach Braff thing, I mean, that happened like a few years ago. I was probably in elementary school when this happened.
Oh,
That
that's
was
brutal.
my mom went up to the car before he left, banged on the window, and basically like cussed him out. How could you like? And I've hated that guy ever since. And he's a POS, and I'm happy he'll never get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. 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 That people like that, it comes around,
Yeah.
just be nicer, like there's a few people that, I wish would have been nicer for us, right? We're fans, right? And we really look up to these people, right? And so I kind of was really bummed out. I was happy about the experience, but bummed out by the interaction with Tyrese. I'm a Tyrese, right? Obviously, I'm a huge Fast fan, and the guy just was like, I'm bigger than every person here. Like, he just did not want to interact. He just wanted to kind of show face, kind of thing. Wave and do that, like no like individual selfies, like, hey, you can film me as I walk by, kind of thing. And it just felt like you know not humble in any way, shape, or form, which was really, really upsetting. But then you meet other really just cool down there. One of my favorite celebrity interactions was Chantel Van Santen. I don't know if I said that right. Van Santen. Chantel Van Santen was the lead in Shooter with Ryan Phillippe, played the wife, and then was in One Tree Hill. She's also in The Boys, and just literally, I was trying not to bother her. It was just like, hey, we were at a Conor McGregor fight, not this past weekend, but at a Conor McGregor fight. And I'm like, hey, are you Chantel? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, same thing. Huge One Tree Hill fan, love Shooter, heartbroken what happened to your character. And I was like, but anyway, good to meet you. Can I take a picture? And she was like, yeah, sure. Just takes a picture with me. And then I'm like, all right, thank you. And I went to walk away, and she was like, hey, so what's your name? And I give her my, and then she's like, so what, who you rooting for? And just started asking me like 1,000 questions about myself. And she was relatively famous at that point, and she must have just gotten casted in The Boys. I mean, like, so she was on her way up. So I was like, very, very interested in having a conversation with a fan. That's how
They should be.
Yeah.
Like Warwick Davis, he's probably one of the best celebrities I've ever met. For those who don't know, he's Willow, he's Wicket and Ewok and Star Wars. I mean, he's just so humble. He knows how lucky he is, and he will talk to the fans nonstop. And he's just, he's happy to live his life. And I feel like that's the way celebrities just should be, because they know they're lucky. Any of them who think they have these like horrible lives, like, they're making him that way, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of my favorite interviews with Paul Walker was like, he was ripping into celebrities, and he's like, really, your life's so hard because you can't have a meal without having someone take a picture of you? Is that what your life sucks about? Like, he's like, and then I think it was the same interview where he was basically like, family, this, that, everything else is sprinkles on the sundae or something like that. And it was just like, it's like, all right, that's a genuine human being, right? Where it's like, that's what you have to complain about. Have you ever lived a day in the life of a normal person? Like,
exactly.
it's like, so anyway, but anyway, so ranking Black Widow, back to Black Widow. What would you rank it out of 10?
Out of 10, I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. I'd give it an 8, just because I like the practical effects. I like that it was very Jason Bourne-esque, James Bond-esque practical effects, not a lot of CGI, and brought in some really fun characters that I hope continue. We didn't mention Olga Kurylenko.
Yeah, I want to bring that up. So
go ahead.
It was amazing because, as we say, we are huge Bond fans, and it was good to see her have a role. But that's a one and done. That was a totally waste, of my opinion, of a huge Marvel villain. I'm going back and forth whether I liked what they did with them in this movie. But as much as simp I am for all things Marvel, they do have issues with villains that aren't like the Thanoses of the world. Like they total like I think they messed up Crossbones. That was a total waste of a villain. And Taskmaster was kind of the same way. They put a big name villain in a movie and they did nothing really, in my opinion.
I don't know if that's the last we'll see of her.
I do.
Really?
I mean, they made her, spoilers. They made her good, which the character at times in the comic books could be anti-heroish, but I just think they didn't explain the character enough. It was a big foe to the Avengers in the comics, who I know they alluded to it in the movie, but like they were able to mimic, hence the name Taskmaster, like of any type of person they fought, they could get those abilities. I don't know. I didn't really like the twist of it being, I don't know. I go back and forth. Yeah. Quite frankly, the entire time I thought it was gonna be the person that Natasha was going to like help get her weapons or to get her out of the country. I can't think of his name, that character. He's pretty famous to have had like no role. So I just assumed he was. I do that a lot in movies, which is bad for someone who's just so into movies. Like I know a lot of actors, and when I see a very famous person or an up and coming actor in a movie, I just assume there's no way. There's a reason they're in this movie. He was totally wasted. Weirdly, though, I read today that he auditioned for a different role, and then ultimately they changed directions, but the director liked him so much they made this role for him, which leads me to believe he was going to be Taskmaster, in my opinion.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's fair. Well, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I really hope Florence Pugh plays a big role going forward, and not just the Hawkeye show, but hopefully some of the movies as well, and takes on maybe the Young Avengers 2.0 here. But but let's talk briefly about Loki.
Yeah, sorry.
There's 2 episodes all over the place. Yeah, Loki. There's 2 episodes to unpack here. Personally, I know you had said early on that, hey, this Loki is going to be likely your favorite show out of the 3 that have made its way to Disney Plus. I can agree that it has the most impact with what's happened in the last 2 episodes. But I will say it is my least favorite thus far of the 3 shows. And these past 2 episodes only solidified that for me. But there's some cool things to unpack that came from it. There's some decent performances. So why don't you give like a quick 2-minute synopsis or 5 minutes if it takes it, because it's 2 full episodes. What happened last couple episodes?
In episode 4, we were following then Loki and Sylvie based off of how the episode previously had ended, where they were trying to get on that ship to get off that planet, and shit was going down. Ultimately, they get saved by the TVA. They open up those doors for them, and they go back there. They're arrested, and most of that episode then takes place there. I actually love this episode, if I'm being honest. From there on out, most of it was kind of they're trying to take down the TVA, as everyone knows, and you find out that the timekeepers are fake. It's going around. Loki's trying to convince Mobius that everything that they think isn't real, and he's telling them that they all are actually variants, and that they haven't actually been bred to work for the TVA, and that's all they've ever known. They've had other lives. They're not everything is what seems to be. And then Renslayer, she's kind of running the show. She's the character that Mobius looks like. He kind of works for. We've talked about before. He may have had a relationship with her or whatnot. You ultimately find out she's one of the villains of this show. She's trying to keep everything under wraps, doesn't want anyone to find out. That one TVA agent from the episode before that Sylvie ends up enchanting to show that she had another life, they killed her. She's telling everyone that she just went so crazy that they had to get rid of her, but ultimately she doesn't want to get out that everything that they're doing is fake. And that leads them to confronting the timekeepers. And like I said, they find out that they're just like android robots. A pretty cool fight scene goes down in there. And then one of the other main TVA agents, she is now questioning everything because she was interrogating Sylvie, where Mobius was interrogating Loki, and they kind of get them on board. And then during this fight, the episode ends with Mobius actually gets pruned. He gets killed, which I thought was pretty shocking. I liked that twist. And then the final nail in the straw is it actually happens to Loki. And I was just like, oh my God, like what just happened? I thought that was a great cliffhanger to the episode. And then that led us to the first end credit scene for the series, where when you get pruned, you ultimately go to a place at the end of time where there seems to be a bunch of different variants, and Loki wakes up and there's 4 other versions of Loki, one being Richard E. Grant, which to me, I love him, and the fact that he is in this show was awesome. I thought that was a really good end credit scene and cliffhanger.
Yeah, how do you feel about alligator Loki?
It's funny you say that. So when I didn't realize when I watched it the first time that like that was a Loki. I just thought Kid Loki, it was like a pet.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was like, after I realized what it was, I'm like, I mean, this is just, they're really going with the bizarreness of this show. And Loki really has set up that anything is possible in the MCU. And I don't want to keep saying this every episode, but this is definitely just setting up all these actors to come back, because anyone can really be anyone now. For all we know, I think the big bad we've talked about before is Kang the Conqueror. Renslayer could be a variant of Kang for all we know. I mean, it's now showed it crosses gender, it crosses race, it can be an animal. I liked that. I thought it was creative.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, so I think there's still some big aspects that we got to talk about, which is that what has happened, what has made this such a triggering event that's going to kind of set up this whole multiverse, is this idea of Loki falls in love with Loki.
Yeah, I forgot that wasn't the episode before. Yeah.
So, basically, Lady Loki and Loki basically get to know one another as they're kind of navigating this this planet, or whatever you want to call it, world, and that's really what causes this kind of chaos of, holy crap, this is a big variance to the timeline. We've never had this happen before, where a version of Loki has ancestrally fallen in love with another version of Loki. And I think a lot of people watching this series are trying to figure out, is that incest? What is that? Is that like weird? Is it funny? Like we don't know what to think in this situation other than, okay, like Loki's so freaking egotistical.
That's the way I look at it. Like, it's just, to me, it's like poetic and it's hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
he would fall in love with himself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how I freaking saw it too. So um it's it reminds me of, there's like a viral video from like 10 years ago where a guy is at the bar wasted and looks at the mirror and doesn't realize he's looking at himself. He's just like trying to flirt with himself. And that's basically what this was. And so basically, if I understood correctly, like, this is a triggering event that could throw everything into chaos, is that these two Lokis getting together, one falling in love with the other, and basically it's a big threat to the Time Variance Authority, and that's the real like triggering event.
It causes like a
what's come.
Nexus event, unlike anything they've ever seen.
Yeah. So I thought that was really kind of a cool way to go. And then that's basically, I think, that domino effect that leads to what we're going to see in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, as well as Spider-Man, which I'm still wondering when the heck that trailer is going to freaking drop, because, I mean, it's about time.
Well, I have I have fanboy thoughts that I wonder if something's going to happen in this last episode that leads into Spider-Man. I mean,
we've been dreaming of that forever.
I know, but I feel like there's a reason they haven't done it. And Disney Plus on their like social accounts have already started the campaign, like, do not spoil the finale for anybody. Like, let them watch it. I will say, I do, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I do think we're gonna get a big bad in the finale that is crossing over to the movies, who's going to be the next big villain, which I've said over and over is Kang the Conqueror. I think he is the person that they're going to in that castle at the end of the episode.
You know who I'd really like to see interact with Loki that has already been confirmed for the Spider-Man movie?
Who?
Willem Dafoe.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That interaction would be unbelievable. So forget Kane the Conqueror. I want Green Goblin to.
That would be amazing. Or even Dr. Octopus with Alfred Molina.
That would be cool too. I think Willem Dafoe is one of the most underrated actors. I think he's just so good. And I think that character, Green Goblin, he was perfect for, and just, again, underrated. That guy steals every scene he's in any movie that he's in. And he was at one point, my favorite to play, like the Joker. I just think he's just amazing.
He's like, I feel like still fan casted to be the Joker.
Yeah, people do mock-ups of him all the time.
Because weirdly enough, not to go over to that, I read a rumor the other day, which I don't know if you saw, which I would find really interesting if it's true, because they are making a Joker sequel to the movie that they made, and supposedly, like, he's not the real Joker in that universe.
He inspires the real Joker.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which would be interesting.
I think is necessary because Arthur's not the Joker. So I that movie was a masterpiece. I loved it. I just thought it should have been called Arthur or something.
Like, I agree. It's not that's a cash grab. That was a brilliant movie about like mental health.
Yeah.
That they made it into a Joker movie. Yeah. I completely agree with you.
But if they go the right way and make it about, hey, that this guy inspired the ultimate maniac that is the Joker, that's great. And it only makes sense because the Joker is not that much older than Bruce Wayne and Batman. I mean, the way that Bruce Wayne's like a kid, it just wouldn't make sense. The Joker wouldn't be able to physically stand up to to Batman. So I mean, yeah, it has to be. Um,
But
but
back
yeah.
to Loki. So did you like that episode?
we love our tangents.
Yeah, that's what makes Nerds Be Heard the best.
Yeah, well, we just have a plethora of knowledge. You know what I mean? I was underwhelmed. I mean, I like the implications, but I was underwhelmed. I mean,
Okay.
I'm kind of bored.
Okay.
But I just after watching both these episodes, I just really, I just want Mobius and to get his jet ski ride. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Could be coming in the finale.
I think it will. They can't
Not
tease
do
it
it.
this
I
much.
agree.
He's gonna get his jet ski ride.
He's definitely not. I mean, I'll give just the main premise of the last episode too, because it is. We then ultimately it picks up right where the end credits scene left off, where Loki, the Loki that we've been following, he's in the void, and he is interacting with all of these other Lokis. One being Kid Loki, Old Loki. I forget what the other Loki's name was. They were calling. He's basically is like a Thor Loki, and they kind of explain to them or to Loki that this place is it's kind of guarded by this like monster type where they can't really leave. They've tried, but they kind of just accepted they're stuck here for the rest of their life. But Loki is kind of, does not accept that. And he's like, we are going to find a way to defeat this monster. That's what we do. We're the god of mischief. Like we find a way to, get basically what we want. And I just thought having all the different Lokis just really added a comedic dynamic. And I think once again, Richard E. Grant, I love him. And I thought he was brilliant as old Loki. And I've actually really liked this about the show, but I'm really into like hardcore sci-fi. I mean, that's what the show is. Like I've mentioned before, to me, this is it's like Doctor Who. At one point I thought it was the poor man's Doctor Who, and now after watching these two episodes, I'm like, this is what Doctor Who should be. I actually have been a roller coaster. As much as I thought I didn't like episode 3, 4, and 5, I've really liked, and now this show has. It may have come back to the top of my list, weirdly enough. So we completely have different opinions. So then the whole episode kind of just is interaction between Lokis. They end up going to a hideout that they have, which there was a cool little Easter egg when they were going down. There was like a frog Thor, which has been in the comics, and it was actually voiced by Chris Hemsworth, which I thought was funny. I mean, you can barely hear it, but
yeah, I didn't hear that. I didn't know that.
I mean, I read about it. I never would have known, but I think it was just a fun Easter egg.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And then they're kind of hiding out there, and then President Loki and gang come, and you find out that one of the Lokis turns on them because he wants to be the ruler. At this point, the kid Loki is like running the show, which I think is kind of funny. And it's kind of just like the void is kind of almost like an apocalyptic with a Walking Dead type environment where everyone's just fending for themselves, trying to survive, like Mad Max-ish a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you're finding out that story, and then back on the TVA, you still have Sylvie there, and she's talking to Renslayer and trying to figure out like how they can save Loki. I think she's playing dumb that she doesn't know who's running the show for the TVA. She's now acting like she wants to find out. Ultimately, she double crosses Sylvie and then tries to get her pruned. And then Sylvie's kind of like, you know what? I'm just going to kill myself to go to the void to try to save Loki. And that's what ultimately happens. And she's then there. And she then meets up actually with Mobius. He's there. So it's not just Lokis that are living there. It's just all of the variants that have been pruned. We're just focusing on the Lokis. And from there, they kind of all team up and they try to take down this smoke monster because they think ultimately Sylvie thinks that she's seen a vision that he's just protecting the actual person who is running the show that they think. So she says she can enchant this monster and defeat them. So, there's a just big scene of her doing that. She kind of teaches Loki how to do it. They're all realizing they have these untapped potential. And then they try to get everyone to go on the mission with them, all the other Loki variants, and they're all like, we're going to stay here. Good luck. And then my favorite part of the episode was then the old Loki. He ultimately comes. He is the most powerful badass one of them all. He has a power he can, and he foreshadowed earlier on in the episode where he can make mirror images of other stuff. He kind of alluded to in his timeline, he never had Thanos kill him. He has, continued on, and he then makes an entire city basically of mirror images and the monsters attacking them, and Sylvie and Loki ultimately enchant the monster and defeat him with the help of old Loki, and we're left to think that he is dead. He sacrificed himself for the greater good, and it opens up this portal where you see through the gate like this mansion type castle place, and that's where it ends. There actually was an end credit scene, which I thought was interesting. And this is now leading us into the big final battle of the finale.
Yeah. What do you have predictions?
My predictions is kind of like I said earlier. I think Kang is going to be in there. He's running the show, and he's going to be the new big Thanos of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or it's being run by a Loki variant. They're my two predictions. I've also gone back and forth. I think Rain Slayer, she actually could be a variant of Kang, and she's been running the show there, and he's running the show here.
Yeah, that makes sense. That could be, yeah.
I definitely think he's showing up. He's already been casted. He's rumored. He's the main villain of the Ant-Man movie. And there's been fan theories that this is all taking place in the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Which I buy into that, and that's my predictions. And I think Loki is not going to make it out alive. And I think Sylvie is going to become just like Florence Pugh's the new Black Widow. I think she's going to be the new Loki. I'm still on the fence though if she's going to betray him or not. I like, as much as I think that they do care for each other, it's in their nature to betray. And I'm wondering if that's going to happen.
Yeah. Interesting. But even though she went through all that to go
I think because it isn't, as the viewer, you're led to believe she did it to save him. I think she has alternative motives. That's one theory that I have. I know I'm giving two, but I can also see that they ultimately do team up with each other and they take down the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you're right that it's setting up the next big bad. I don't think they would kind of out this whole last 2-episode arc has set up this idea of like the Wizard of Oz, right? This puppet master behind everything, and it's I don't know. I think it really is going to be some sort of big bad. They're probably taking a little bit of a different approach. Like when they introduced Thanos, it was like an after credits kind of glimpse. I feel like this will be like a bigger introduction, and so it makes sense. I'm kind of agreeing with your theory, but I'm hoping. I have these hopes, we both do, that there's going to be bigger cameos. That there's going to be a bigger connection, or at least like a visit from Doctor Strange or something. Just something to get us geared up for the next.
I feel like we have to have something that's connecting it directly to Spider-Man / Doctor Strange. And I think we've talked about this before, but Doctor Strange is 100% in Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, all the merchandise is leaked and he's part of it.
Yeah.
So,
and in Shang-Chi, I think they I think they confirmed that Abomination
Fighting Wong.
is fighting Wong. Yeah, so if Wong's gonna be in Shang-Chi, then I feel like they have to connect it somehow. I feel like we're gonna get a Doctor Strange cameo.
Yeah, I would. I think that could be the end credit scene. Just because so many fans thought it was going to happen in WandaVision too. It's kind of like give the people what they want type thing. Because even if it wasn't already the plan, they could have changed it. I mean, how they could have filmed a quick scene.
Yeah.
We do need something. I that or Spider-Man. I just feel like I lean then even towards Spider-Man, but Doctor Strange technically is in that movie, so it's one and the same. I think that's definitely why we haven't seen a trailer for it. I
Yeah,
think that trailer's coming. I mean, there's a reason it wasn't in the Black Widow movie either.
right. That's the other thing. I was expecting something in Black Widow in terms of a preview, but I just don't see Spider-Man, Peter Parker finding a way into this world right now. Through this kind of avenue. Like it would be random. Like how does he? I feel like you can come up with a Doctor Strange or even an Ant-Man making
And I agree to that because Spider-Man is going to learn how to do all this stuff from Doctor Strange in the new movie.
right.
They've already set up Doctor Strange is now the new, for whether you like it or not. I like it. I think you don't. The Peter Parker of the MCU is kind of, they've kept him. He's young. He is not more of an adult like all the other Avengers. So he has a mentor, Tony Stark being his original mentor. I do now think Doctor Strange is going to have that role.
I can see that.
Because he's going to have to learn how to travel between multiverses from somebody.
Yeah.
And why not him?
Yeah, I can see it. He does need that mentor.
And once again, going back into how I kind of was like before, I know all the behind the scenes stuff, whether it's actors, directors, writers. The writer of this show, he's the writer of Doctor Strange too. So that also makes me feel like this is a perfect way to bridge the movies. That's done on purpose.
I just don't you think that, and maybe don't you think that this version of Peter Parker has kind of learned his lesson with mentors? I mean, after Mysterio and
yeah, I know I'm the one who just brought up the mentor thing. It's going to be a different type of mentor. I think they're just kind of putting him with another person. Maybe he's not his mentor, but he's going to have to learn. I don't want to keep saying this, but like he is not. If Spider-Man No Way Home is as crazy as we all think it's going to be, he's not just going to magically know how to travel between multiverses in time. It's not just going to be something that happens to him. He's going to learn how to do it for some reason.
Yeah, agreed.
So I have read some rumors, which I don't really want spoilers, but he may have altercations with Doctor Strange as well. They don't necessarily agree on something.
Yeah. Well, Doctor Strange is kind of a jerk sometimes, so I could see that. Yeah, I could dig it. No, I think those. I don't have any theories that kind of outdo yours. I think I'm kind of in agreement that we're gonna release some sort of big bad that's gonna have dramatic impact on the rest of the universe. I agree. I think Loki, the Loki we know, ultimately sees their demise and doesn't play a role anymore. I had originally thought they would survive and continue to thrive in that world, but I think Hiddleston's probably ready to move on to new content, and I think we've set up these new characters, this next phase of new characters that have connections to the original ones, so they give us that kind of nostalgia while creating new, exciting content for us to enjoy with new characters and new actors.
Which I'm excited for. I'm ready
too.
for some new blood.
I am as well, and it's going to be great to have some of the remaining cast kind of that didn't have their chance to shine now be leaders, and keep that kind of web connected to the original. Like, I'm really pumped for Anthony Mackie taking on a leadership role, and I kind of look at. I'm hoping there's some sort of interaction with Anthony Mackie and Peter Parker. I feel like that would be a really good mentor-mentee type.
I think there will be down the road. They've kind of joked with each other throughout the series, and they're definitely going to be two of the leaders of the Avengers. There's no doubt in my mind with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that'll be exciting. And then do you think there'll be a showdown between Anthony Mackie's Captain America and
Chris Evans?
No. What's his name from Black Widow?
Oh, the Red Guardian?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be amazing. It's funny. I feel like, will there be a showdown between them? I don't think so, but I feel like the Red Guardian is going to come back. Some of those characters need to have their own movies or something. Like, that was like, are you a Stranger Things fan or no?
No.
Okay.
I watched season 1 and I stopped.
David Harbour's become pretty famous. I find it hard to believe he would have just joined that movie for just that role. He was a great part. I actually think he was wasted. Everything he did was, I really like him. I just wish there was more of him. I don't know if you agree or not, or you're not a fan.
I have an issue with him because of Hellboy.
Yeah.
So,
that's not his fault.
Yeah, just don't take the role, man. Like, that's Ron Perlman's. I don't even like Ron Perlman as a human being. I think if you follow him on social media, he's just a jackass, but love him as an actor. I really struggle with that, but he's actually, we talk Sons of Anarchy. If you rewatch Sons of Anarchy, Clay is not even remotely even close to a bad guy when you compare him to what Jack's turned into. So and it's like, oh my god, like he's actually like really looks like sunshine and rainbows compared to what Jack's turned into. So I love Ron Perlman as an actor, and I loved him as Hellboy. And I just thought it was so weird that this guy still wants to be Hellboy and wants to be involved, and they just did him like that with this horrible reboot. So
yeah, I can see that. But I love Stranger Things. It's one of my favorite shows, and he's one of my favorite characters. So I could be just biased with that.
Yeah.
I feel like you should give that show another chance.
People say that about a lot of shows, and I give them multiple chances, and then I really regret it at the end of the day. But I'll try Stranger Things has that vibe that I like. The Goonies kind of.
I mean, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll rewatch that one. It's things like I rewatched Game of Thrones like 3 freaking times. I tried so hard, and it was just like
Yeah, I can't believe that is one of the greatest shows of all time. So I'm shocked that you don't like that show. But
I get really connected to characters, and so when they all die, it's just like, well, then it feels like I'm watching 20 shows. Like, it's like, all right, now I got to start fresh with a new one, which is exciting for people, right?
Yeah.
I like to follow on the TV. I like to follow a character's journey and see it through to the end. And I know that, like, in a world like Game of Thrones, it's like, hey, that is the end. They got short-lived lives. It's like cool. I don't know, like Sons of Anarchy was the story of Jax Teller. You saw it from beginning to middle to end. You followed that character's journey and you were invested in it. Peaky Blinders is the story of Thomas Shelby. Same thing. Sopranos, my other top
See,
three.
I can argue though that there is a character that Game of Thrones is about from beginning to end. You're just not seeing that because you haven't watched enough.
Jon Snow or Daenerys.
Well, yeah, but
I mean,
do you know? Like, it's funny. Do you know anything about like what happens with his
yes.
character? Okay,
I know everything about the show because I read every spoiler and I read every recap because I was desperate to get into it. So I was like, all right, like what happened this week and why is everyone so excited about the Red Wedding and why is everyone so excited about this and oh my God, are Daenerys and Jon Snow gonna bang and oh my God, they're related and oh my God, I watched, I read it, I watched recaps, I love every actor that's been on the show. I'm a huge fan of Jason Momoa, which that's actually one of the reasons I stopped watching the show. I'm a huge fan of now I really like Richard Madden. I really like what's her name?
Mia
No,
Clark.
no. Well, yeah, she's all right, but I have like the biggest crush on Natalie Dormer.
Okay.
So like the biggest crush on her. So
She's in
that
well, because she's in Peaky Blinders.
no, she's not.
She's not in Peaky Blinders.
No.
I don't know why I thought she comes in that show.
No, you know what? I developed a crush on her actually during the worst movie ever. And it was actually a promo of the movie that never made the cut, but it's called The Counselor, and it was the worst movie. it was such a letdown. You see The Counselor, Michael Fassbender and Brad
Yes.
Pitt, and I mean, had the makings of a pure American classic, and it just totally missed the mark, and it was so upsetting because it was like everything I like in a movie. It seemed like it was going to be that, and it didn't turn into it. But they had a promo for the movie. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it because it will make you actually want to rewatch the movie. But type in The Counselor, Natalie Dormer, lingerie store or something like that. She works at a lingerie store. He goes in, he's going to buy lingerie for his wife to be. And there's this dialogue between the two characters. And it's very, very well done by very great actors between Michael Fassbender and Natalie Dormer. It's very clear they're attracted to each other. It's very clear there's a chemistry there, but he's buying lingerie for a different woman. And it's just a really cool, they did it just as a promo and it was like through GQ or something for the movie. And I was like, who is that? And I fell in love. And then she was in Rush, which is another great film with Chris Hemsworth.
That's a good movie.
And then Game of Thrones, not Game of Thrones. Well, she's in Game of Thrones, but
she was in Penny
Hunger
Dreadful
Games
too, I think.
Yep, Penny Dreadful, and then she was in Hunger Games.
I don't know why I thought she was in later seasons of Peaky Blinders.
No, the chick from
oh, it's the girl from Queen's Gambit, right?
Yep, and they look very similar.
They do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The girl from Queen's Gambit. Yep, 100%. That's who you're thinking of, and she's only in the latest season. But
she's a good actress.
Yeah, she's a great actress, and Finn Cole, who's in Peaky Blinders and is also in Animal Kingdom, which I was talking about earlier, was just in F9. He was in a movie called Dreamland with Margot Robbie. He is a star on the rise. Finn Cole. If you guys don't know,
what are the odds that an actor is in two of your favorite shows? That's crazy.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. And he's barely in anything.
And he's so good at acting that I don't even know that, like when you're like, it's so hard to like, especially when you're invested in a show, like for example, Charlie Hunnam. When I see Charlie Hunnam anywhere, I think Jack Steller. It's on my mind. Like in the Guy Ritchie movie, The Gentleman, I'm like, that's Jack Teller with slick back hair and a suit on. Like it's just like, and so, but there's certain actors that can pull it off. Another actor that's really good at that is David Costabile. His name is. He's in Suits and Billions, and he plays a douchebag on Suits, and he plays the coolest guy ever on Billions. And it's like you can definitely get over the fact that he plays the douchebag on the other show. Finn Cole is able to pull that off. I'm telling you, he's going to be a superstar. He's a next big actor that people are sleeping on.
I can see that. He has the look.
He's got the look and the chops and the just, and you need to watch Animal Kingdom. I think you'll like it, especially as a Sons of Anarchy fan. I think you're sleeping on that show.
I am. I know I'm sleeping on. I have this list of shows that I need to watch, and that has been on it. It's funny because I feel like that is weird. So TNT is one of the biggest actual networks in the country, but it skews to a demographic that I feel like isn't really me. Mm-hmm. And as popular as that show has become, I feel like it would have been so much bigger if it was on a different network. Because I feel like most people who probably watch TNT aren't necessarily into that show. Maybe I'm wrong, but
no, you're 100% correct. And if it was on, it belongs on like a Showtime, or even an FX.
Yeah, it's like it reminds me of an FX show.
The thing is that, yeah, they could have gotten away with a lot more if they, even late night FX or HBO, any of that would have been great for this show, and I wish it was. And honestly, I found it by accident. I was watching the Final Four in 2016, and they had a preview on immediately after the game. And I had just moved to San Diego, and like it's on in the background, and I'm like, I think I just met my wife, and I'm like texting her, like trying to see her again. And then there's this show on in the background, and it's like jet skis and surfing and jumping out of plane. I'm like, what the heck is this? And then it was like this, family drama, and like it reminded me of Sunset. I'm like, what is this show? And it was like a full hour, and there was like, this is the preview. This airs July, and that was in like March, or April. And I'm like, I have to wait till freaking July, because it was just the pilot episode. They were just trying to get people interested, and that's how it hooked me. So it worked, but. Yeah, you're right. On a day, I've never watched the other TNT show in my life. I don't even know what else is on TNT, but love that show.
I definitely need to watch it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we talked a lot. We talked in circles. We went in every direction you could possibly go in, but it's all good because this is what we do in the Nerds But Heard podcast. It is an expansive universe. We have a multiverse of shows and movies that we discuss, and it's always a pleasure to talk about it with you, Charlie.
Same with you, Matt.
So next week we will probably cover the season or series finale of Loki. Not sure where we're going to end up with when it comes to that. And every day is a new day with new news. I think we're getting a lot closer to more announcements on what's going to happen with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. We're definitely inching closer to more announcements with regards to the Bond franchise as Amazon gets a grip on that. I'm hoping for a trailer on that coming soon. We'll probably see another trailer for Top Gun Maverick in the very near future. I'm surprised they didn't do that 4th of July weekend. I was half expecting that. We've got a lot in the pipeline. I think we're about to break. I think there's this lull right now before like Shang-Chi in September and a couple other big big things coming in the pipeline, and I think the studios are going to start unloading. Right now is like glory days of TV. They're releasing all the new seasons of all these big shows. They're all kind of coming. We will definitely need to, not next episode, the following episode covers episode 1 of season 2 of Outer Banks.
Yes.
That is a great show for nerds. It's basically in and of itself like the Goonies, just like Stranger Things. It's like a teen soap in Goonie land, and I love it. And we'll want to talk about that and see if we can't get some of that cast to come talk about that show on our podcast. They do live in my neighborhood.
So will you just binge that show, or do you don't? Is that not how you would watch it?
Yeah, I'll probably watch multiple episodes at once.
Okay. Just curious, based off of how we'll watch it when we talk about it. I feel like I want to watch that show as quick as possible, but I don't know if it's going to be the reality.
Yeah, but I also am very good at knowing what happens in what episode and not spilling into. I'll be able to, if I binge it, I'll be able to hold back any kind of spoilers and things like that. That's in the pipeline. There's so many things to talk about in the coming weeks. So get excited. And we'll see if we can mention some of the other guilty pleasures I have that I've been watching on TV, including Animal Kingdom. There was a new Gossip Girl that came out. I watched the episode 1 of that, which was pretty interesting.
Was it good?
Different. I think it could be good. I think it could be really a much better show than the original one, but jury's out. It's a little bit creepy.
Okay.
Put it that way.
It looks it. And it's also because I'm like, is this on HBO Max just because they want to have an IP, or is it like a streaming show where it's more mature?
It's definitely more mature.
Okay.
There's like, it's very, very, we're a PG, maybe PG-13 show here, so I'll just, there's a lot of action, and there's a lot of but they're definitely trying to bring it into modern day and explore, not be discriminatory when it comes to areas that they're exploring, and people and types of people that they're exploring. And it brings a really cool actually element to the show, and something you haven't really seen at this level. And then they have you want me to, it's an episode 1 spoiler, but it's,
I don't
probably
care.
Yeah, they tell you who Gossip Girl is in episode 1. So it's not even like, I think the last one they revealed it like the last episode or something.
Yeah.
This one, it was episode 1, and they just tell you who it is, and why it's creepy is it's their freaking teacher.
Okay.
So their teacher's like taking pictures and posting it about their students. It's like, this is really, really creepy. Really creepy, in order to try to control them, because the kids kind of control, they're so wealthy and rich that they like ruin the lives of their teachers. And it's a really weird, they're definitely talking, it's a big anti-capitalism, big kind of anti-rich kid type thing. It's like, you should feel guilty for having wealth, is basically the direction they're going in. So it's interesting. I was definitely, the trailer got me interested in watching it, so I turned it on, and I wasn't disappointed, but I don't know if I'll continue.
It's funny. I didn't realize, like, I weirdly enough I watched In the Heights this weekend on HBO Max, and I was like, oh, Gossip Girl already came out. Like, I didn't realize the first episode came out, and then we just didn't get around to watching it. But
yeah, if it seems interesting, I don't discriminate. I'll watch it. I also got into Startup for a while too. We can talk about that at some point, but I was a little underwhelmed by that show.
The
And then I
show
want,
I'm waiting for, which is I would say my current favorite show that's on any service, is Ted Lasso. Season 2 is coming on Apple TV. Have you heard of Ted Lasso?
no,
It's on Apple TV. It stars Jason Sudeikis. It's a comedy, but it's a really feel good show. Like I love it. The premise is this guy is a, a coach of like a Division 3 football college team. He kind of goes viral, and one of they make up a fictional soccer team, football team in England in the Premier League. The owners go through a divorce, and she just basically wants to shit all over her ex-husband. His pride and joy is his soccer team, so she hires him to come be the new coach of their soccer team in England. And this guy he doesn't know shit about soccer, Jason Sudeikis' character.
yeah,
But he's coming from like Southern values over to England to coach these guys.
yeah.
It's really funny. I highly recommend it.
I
It
don't have Apple
actually
TV,
You don't? Okay.
but I'll figure out a way to watch that.
Yeah, it's weirdly enough, like I wanted to watch it immediately. It's become like a critical darling. He won a bunch of Golden Globes, and he's front runner to win best comedy and best comedic performance for the Emmy. So it's
Interesting.
I'm not just it's a really good show.
I'll watch it. It sounds awesome.
And he's the
That sounds like
creator of
something
it.
I'd like.
Yeah,
Sure.
you would like it. It's funny.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, he created the character for NBC Sports as like a joke for a promo for like the Premier League. And then he was just like, hey, I can make this into a full-fledged television show.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna look that. I'm gonna see if I can. There's a few Apple TV shows that have been recommended to me. That was one of them. I think Nick, our buddy Nick, was watching that show too. Actually,
I weirdly, I'm a big. I mean, anyone who knows me, I'm a huge Apple person in general. But I can sit here and say, I have watched almost every show on their service, and they're all good. They have spent a ton of money
you watch C?
on. I did. It's good.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. I've watched basically every show. There's a few that just I'm not interested in, but I watched Mythic Quest, which is I think is hilarious. It's from the creators of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and it's essentially they're running a video game company, and it's like The Office, but for a video game company. It's really,
Nice.
really funny. If you like It's Always Sunny, it's the same type of humor.
It's like Grandma's Boy with the video game company. That's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, dude, like, I mean, have you probably, because you have like the newest phone, right?
Yeah.
If you buy any Apple product, they give you a year of the service for free. You don't need to have an Apple TV to get it's a streaming service app. Just like
so I can just watch it on my phone.
Yeah, on your phone you can watch it. But yeah, they have a lot of good shows.
I'll have to check out. I'll definitely check out the one with Jason Sudeikis. I was thinking about watching C. But I've got a new nickname for you because you're the big Disney guy. You're also the big Apple guy. So your new name, you're gonna like this because but Blue Chip, that's your name.
Okay, I'll go Blue Chip.
Like blue chip stock, man. That's what you are, Blue Chip.
You're hilarious. I liked them before they were making all the money. Especially Apple.
Yeah,
I was made fun of for using Apple stuff when I was young. When I'll never forget when Steve Jobs is one of my idols, and when he came back to Apple and he created the colored iMacs, like I got that shit immediately. And at that point, like you couldn't really, Mac wasn't what it was today. You couldn't really play computer games on there, like the things that people are doing. They're like, why would you ever use a Mac? Like they're like the garbage computers you use in some schools, and
Yeah.
then they became, they run the world.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I remember thinking Macs were like, because I had my DOS mode. I would play Doom on the computer. I was like, oh man, look, I can play Doom. What are you gonna do on your Mac? You can't play Doom,
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, even in college, I remember you were like always with the iPhone before, when everyone else had like um flip phones and
I switched. So when the iPhone first came out, you could only get on AT&T, and my parents had Verizon. I made them switch to AT&T so I can get the iPhone.
yeah. I remember you were one of the first to have it.
Yeah.
So
So
you and Ari were the first to have it.
yeah, that's hilarious.
Classic. All right. Well, hey, it was good catching up. We will
Yes, it
catch up
was.
again next week. We're probably in a couple days here
Yeah.
and release another episode of Nerds Be Heard. In the meantime, I'm Matt Lesmeister, joined by Charlie, and we're the Nerds Be Heard podcast.
We're
Signing
out.
off.
Bye, everyone.